Hey all, Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast. It is Sunday, October 23rd, 2016. Yet another football Sunday. It's week 7 in the NFL. The Giants beat the Rams in London. Or was it in London, or is it just England? I think it was London. Really good win. I still don't know where the Giants stand as a team. They beat the Rams 17-10, and their only offensive touchdown was a Rashad Jennings about 2 or 3 yard touchdown run, which was made possible by an interception off of Case Keenum. Case Keenum, I believe, had 4 interceptions, 2 of which went to Landon Collins, who's been a very impressive New York Giant this year. The Alabama product. It feels like he's almost one of those tweener guys who could be a linebacker or a safety. He's a very big guy, but he made some real plays today. Very good. And he actually took one back to the house where it was about a 45 yard, I think, run back, but it was probably the equivalent of 100 yards because it was one of those where you're running back and forth across the field, trying to find every block you can. And when he was running it back, I was thinking to myself, man, he's got to get in. Sometimes you just got to punch it in, because if you then settle the game and then you get the offense out there, it gives the Rams, who have a very good defense, the chance to set themselves. The opportunity to score that touchdown might not be there, whereas if you have that broken play aspect of an interception, you just force your way in there, you get that 6-7 points, and you're in good shape. But it was a pick 6 going on pick 17, almost with the amount of yards he had to run to get it. It was quite impressive. So the Giants are 4-3. They started with two wins in a row this season, lost the next 3, and now have won the last 2. This was one of those games that could have gone either way, though. And it was the kind of game the Giants would lose last year. And they were just sort of lucky that Case Keenum blew up as a backup quarterback does. I often think backup quarterbacks are like the replaceable tires that you keep in your car, the spare tires. Those things are not the normal size of actual tires. They're a lot smaller. They have that kind of donut feel, and they're good in a pinch. If your tire blows, you can put that thing on and it could get you to wherever you're going. It could get you to the point where you can get a real tire put back on there. But if you ride that thing out too much, it's over. It's not going to be a very good thing. You don't want to be riding a donut for any long amount of time, because it's really bad things going to happen. I often think backup quarterbacks are sort of like that spare tire. They can really do something in a pinch. A lot of times when they come into a game in progress, they can do some damage because the other team was not game planning for them. So they kind of have they have surprise at their advantage. But then once you can kind of game plan for them, they're not too good. Once you ride that spare tire, that donut, further than it should, it's going to put kind of bad strain on your car in general. And so Case Keenum gave it to the Giants in many ways. Their defense took it too. I mean, that really was the kind of game Giants would lose. So I don't know what's going on with the Giants' offensive touchdowns. Obviously, last week they had a real good run there late in the game, really serendipitously, against the Ravens. They ended up with a lot of numbers because Odell Beckham had amazing yards after the catch, which helped Eli's numbers jump up to what they were. He had something like 220 yards catching, which gave Eli over 400 yards and I think 3 touchdown passes. But there's just something strange with the Giants. Now, the Rams, again, are a very good defense. They're an A-class defense with a spare tire offense. And maybe Jared Goff will be good in the future, maybe not, but only time will tell with that one. But the Giants were lucky because they had Case Keenum, and it was a little worrisome at the end of the game there because Keenum got the Rams moving down the field. Some big plays, almost that prevent defense feel, and they got real close, and it was ultimately an interception in the end zone that sealed the game. But I didn't really want to talk as much about sports. I will talk a little bit as I interweave the subjects of this podcast, but I've kind of noticed, and I don't know if this is kind of a mid-30s midlife crisis. I know you're not supposed to get a midlife crisis till you're in your 40s and 50s. They say it's almost a curve where you have a lot of enthusiasm about life up until about 40, and then you kind of feel your mortality and you drop down, a little depression, a little feeling of your mortality coming up, And then what happens is they say the curve then winds right back up to where I think in your late 50s, early 60s, happiness comes right back. You're not as worried about the impending doom of where we all have to go at the end of this line. And you kind of have the received wisdom of your life, and you know where you stand. There's no anxieties really that are going to get you. You are who you are at that point. And you have you sort of, the happiness overrides any anxieties that might be present at that point. So it's kind of this you. But I do want to say that because I don't know if what I'm about to talk about is some kind of product of feeling like you're in a lull, or if it just is this feeling, and only by people listening to this can they kind of agree or concur. There just feels to be a general malaise around a lot of the things that I follow and like, and I try to be very informed when we're talking politics, current events, news, geopolitical situations, and I feel like there's just a malaise in politics and technology and sports and in entertainment. Where, as I said, the Giants were playing prevent defense on that last drive of the game. The world kind of feels like it's in a prevent defense. The entities in the world that have driven advancement feel like they're in a prevent defense. America was always sort of the arbiter of good governance and the progenitor of great technology and sports and entertainment. And it just kind of feels like maybe a lot of the ideas have wrung themselves dry on whatever epic this was, or whatever place we are in time where we're waiting for that next leapfrog from where the platform we stand with many of these things. But I think it's obvious in politics that we're in a general malaise. And I think a lot of it was caused by Donald Trump being present in this thing. Because Donald Trump has been a nihilist. He's been an anarchist. And he wouldn't follow through on one of the things he's talking about out here. He's saying things he's never believed in his life. He's a professional wrestler. He is, as he was on the stage there, I think trying to shave McMahon's head on one of these wrestling events. He's a phony. He's pushing things that he doesn't believe in. He's standing for people that he could give a damn about in his entire life and in all the ways that he's lived his life, which I'm not going to begrudge a person for having money and being rich and being the 1% and closing yourself off from the world because you have so much money and you're kind of afraid to for someone to come in and try to take it, or you just don't want to be around the little people, if it were. But this guy is just a phony. But what he's done, and a lot of people, I think, seeing him a Pied Piper for their way of thinking about the world, where the world is leaving them. A lot in the middle of this country who were the backbone to the last 50 or 60 years of the growth of our country. When you're talking about manufacturing, when you're talking about coal, when you're talking about all these kinds of industries where one company could generate 5,000 jobs, where two companies could generate 20,000 jobs, where company towns could be made by having that one company there. It would employ all of the citizens. All the side companies that would be hooked into that mothership company could employ, maybe there's 15 companies who in total could employ 1,000 people just based off of its closeness to that big organization. And a lot of that is decoupling. And is it the fault of Democrats and politicians and liberals? I wouldn't say so. I think whether there was politics or not, a lot of these companies that came together, a lot of these industries were going to be decoupled. That's kind of the word of the day here. We decouple. Technology disrupts. The future disrupts. It leapfrogs. We can't be afraid of what we're losing. We have to have faith that we're going to leapfrog to something that makes sense. I believe in this idea that will there be two companies that can generate 10,000 jobs? No. Will there be 10,000 companies that can generate 4 jobs each? Yeah, I think that's where we go. Will there have to be a universal basic income at some point where there's just not the There's just not the place to have all these jobs. Is there going to be something where the government has to sort of pay an income, a basic income, to all its citizens that gives them the ability to live at some basic level, that gives them the ability to cover their heads with a home or an apartment or a condo, that can put food on their table, that can give their basic needs, that can make them go and get educated without the fear of those basic necessities that you need. We might have to go there. There's some countries that are experimenting with that. And as we talk about the automation of jobs, as they go to robots and computers and algorithms and away from people, I mean, think about the supply chain of building cars over the last, handful of decades. There might be 10 people on a line that could come together to create one car. Well, why do you need people to do one supply chain thing? Isn't that even not a life you want to live? If you're just the one person on that chain, don't you feel like you're sort of in Plato's cave where you're looking at the shadows on the wall? Don't you want to be outside the cave, having your own self-betterment, having your own place where you want to create and you want to feel like you're fulfilled as a person? You don't just want to punch the clock, do your one thing over and over again in a rote manner all day, head to the bar for a couple of pops, head home to your kids. Like, is that really the life? That is sort of the life that people hearken back to in some of these towns across the country. They hearken back to that world that they want because maybe their parents did it. But I don't know about you. I don't want that. And even if I'm in one of these zones where we're doing well economically, if we're in these kind of high-tech futuristic jobs that are based on digital platforms and based on technology or based on the future of jobs, I still feel anxiety about my job because if you're in technology, you can be leapfrogged really quickly too. You could be out of a job by algorithms or robotic entities. But in myself, I want to be fulfilled. I like my job. I really enjoy it. But I'm constantly thinking about the things I want to do on the side. I'm constantly thinking about when I'm going to work out, when I'm going to make a podcast, when I'm going to write an article, when I'm going to go to when I'm going to listen to podcasts, consume media, create media, give to the world, take from the world. That's the kind of place I want to live in. And maybe I'm abnormal that way, but it's just it's just the place that we need to be. And I just feel like there's this malaise where from a country standpoint, from a world standpoint, we don't want to move forward. And I've often thought in the U.S., we have played prevent defense for too long lately. We are allowing the world to catch up. We're allowing them to gain major yardage. And then when you allow them to gain major yardage, if you're within 30, 20 yards of that end zone, something crazy can happen. A broken play can lead to a touchdown, and all of a sudden you lost the game by playing prevent defense. You're up a field goal, you give up a touchdown. Someone falls down as they're running backwards, guarding the receiver. You just don't know. And I just feel like we need it to be on the offensive. We have the ability. We have the technology companies. We have the top tech companies, the top tech world beaters. And we kind of sit on it. We don't create these enterprise zones that allow more companies to sprout up around the country, that allow innovation to be rewarded, that allow ideas to tie nodally with other ideas happening around the country and be better than the sum of all those parts, of all those regions, of all those places. And we're just letting it go. We're focusing on the negative. We're focusing on who's running for president and how your life will end if they lose. Now, this one, if Donald Trump happened to win, it would be bad because this guy doesn't care about the country. He doesn't have any idea about policy. And then on top of it, he's going to be the top-down man hiring the people who do determine those things. And who knows who those people could be, what they could do to our country, how they could take it backwards, how they could even the playing field by playing a form of sort of, think about the fact, when I go back to the backup quarterbacks, we'd be putting a backup quarterback in charge of our country. Who knows what happens? What if he gives up 4 interceptions? What if he fumbles the ball for touchdowns? What if we get blown out 48-10? What does that mean for America? We're worried about debt. We're worried about the price of the dollar, even though we're the default denomination around the world. We are in a place where we are the Patriots. A funny word, but we are the team that has the infrastructure, that has the coaching staff, that has the quarterback. And look, Hillary will be a very good quarterback. We know what she's going to be. She's not going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick. She's not going to be Case Keenum. She's going to be a very good, she might be, she might be Joe Montana in his final 2 years in Kansas City. Is it his prime? No. But does he have the magic still of what he can do? Can he get you to the playoffs? Can he get you 10 wins? Yes. Then you draft the next quarterback, 4-8 years, and you're in a good position. But let us not blow this lead. But there is just a malaise with it all. There's a malaise with technology. And maybe there should be. Is there the ability to jump forward many steps on the path towards what's next? It's not our job to know what's next. It's the job of the entrepreneurs. Henry Ford, I've said this a million times. If I listened to the customers, he said, I'd be trying to make faster horses. No, he made a car. Steve Jobs made an iPhone. He changed the way we think about our interactions with mobile personal devices, and he changed the market. 7 out of 10 websites are visited from mobile phones now. So we went from designing websites that look beautiful, expansive for desktops and laptops, and no one's visiting them that way. And we're making websites that look terrible on mobile, and that's where the majority of people are consuming them from. We just need to be of the time we are. We need to be moving forward. There's sort of a malaise in sports a little bit. Doesn't it just feel like it's not as intense as it was? Again, is this because I'm 34 years old? I've seen as many seasons intently as I have. I've seen these games before. I've seen these storylines before. I don't know. I think it feels less than. I think there's a malaise. I think that football is vulnerable to the medical conditions it's now playing within. I think we don't like to feel good about big hits anymore when we used to. Sort of like drinking Budweiser. We want to have craft beers, but can there be a craft revolution in football? Big hits are the deal. Big guys are the deal. How do people not get hurt when they're playing? It's very hard to say. You look at basketball, the NBA. We love Kevin Durant. We love the Warriors. When the two mix together, all of a sudden you have these major sort of conglomerates. You have Apple, you have Amazon, you have Google, and you have the rest of a league, you have the rest of an industry being overwhelmed, being eclipsed by those entities. How is the rest of the NFL matter, or how does the rest of the NBA matter now? Does anyone care how point Giannis is doing? Giannis Antetokounmpo, or whatever his name is, running the way in Milwaukee there. Who cares how the Knicks are doing? Who cares how Orlando's doing? Because you have these teams, you have these super teams that are probably going to be there at the end of the season. Everything's preordained. Yes, they could get injured, but is that how you want another team to pop into play, is by somebody getting injured? Is it going to be fun to watch Golden State play? Is it going to be fun to see other teams play them and try to beat them and try to find the vulnerabilities in this world-beating team? Yeah, it will be. But what about watching Denver versus Milwaukee? Does anyone care about that game? Does it matter? Is it kind of like in Game of Thrones when you see what's coming from the north and the White Walkers, and yet you're trying to go about your life in running the governments of Marine and Westeros, or not Westeros, all these little statelets around Westeros? Does it matter? Does it matter when global warming's doing what it's doing? There's just a malaise around this whole thing. The only things I can think of that are advancing at this point, and look, these things can change on a dime. Everything can turn around. The next invention can be the one that takes us forward 20 steps while we're sitting here waiting to go one step. You just don't know. The next innovation can be biological. The next innovation can be battery. The next innovation can be speed, 5K, 6K, 7K, 8K. And with that new speed, maybe it'll change the rules of how you can do certain things that we're not even thinking of doing now. But you have to agree, you can't deny there is a malaise to it all. It's very difficult to kind of push through. And what are the things that are advancing? This right wing, this nativist, this protectionist feel where we want to close in around the things we can control, but you can't control. The cat's out of the bag, the horse is out of the barn, the door's open, the horse is gone. We got to figure a way to replenish it all. I mean, it's very difficult. We can't get closed-minded about these things. We are one planet. That's what we are. We are one open source planet. And if we want to talk about the universe and the galaxy, it's all open source. Who defines the rules of what that thing is supposed to be and how it's supposed to work? It's not. You can't do it. I mean, it's unbelievable to to kind of think that way. One country, close the borders here, and these borders, which were created by people in Europe years ago to subjugate nations, and we're like, no, those borders matter to us. Mexico, you're one step over. Is it really different from being in El Paso to being on the other end? Well, I mean, no, it's all the same Earth. It's all the same planet. I mean, at the end of the day, wasn't Pangea the fact that all of the Earth's mass was tied together until something broke it all apart? What do borders matter with that? I mean, it's insane. And we wrote these borders in whatever that PICO agreement was after World War I think, or World War II. And all of a sudden, Syria is like, okay, Syria exists or Iraq exists, and the lines are just drawn by cartographers who have no idea about the sectarian nature of these zones, that there really needs to be a Kurdistan or there really needs to be a Sunnistan or a Shiistan. I mean, this is sort of where it is. And these lines now say, no, this is our land. And you step one over and you're dead. I mean, it's a scary world. But the things that are advancing are protectionist, are nativist. And that's not where we are. We want our technology to be open, but yet then we're sitting there going, no, lock them out, close the border, put up walls. Good luck with that. Come on, get out of here with that. It's unbelievable how we think. What else is advancing? How about the ice in Greenland? How about that coming apart? How about the fact I just read in the New Yorker this week about Greenland melting, that for millennia there was ice everywhere, and now all of a sudden the seasons, there's not even a season that the water in certain bays around Iceland or Greenland, because it's funny, Greenland is the ice one, Iceland is the green one. Go figure. That's our nomenclature. Who knows? But a lot of these bays for many, many months during the year. In recent times, they were completely iced over. The bays that go into certain ports and towns that are available for commerce in Greenland. There's not a lot. It's a very closed country. Underneath, I believe, Denmark, which is interesting. But now, these bays, which used to be iced over for all of winter, and they would have to ride snowmobiles over to these other islands in order to fish for halibut. Now these bays are wide open, and now they're able to fish these bays, and they're able to take their boats out in them year round. Now people are thinking about, let's open up and allow people to drill for oil here, because now it's all open. Why not? Let's allow ships to go through these Arctic circles, because they're now open for certain parts of the year. We're thinking of this in commerce, and yet we're forgetting the fact that we are opening the world up to be further warmed. Global warming is completely real, folks. I remember Thomas Friedman in the book, I forget the one I read, but the one about green technology, maybe 6 or 8 years ago. And he was talking about it's actually global weirding. It's not global warming. Global weirding is where these changes in temperature, the ice melt, all that stuff just changes all different zones of temperature and weather in weird ways. It doesn't just turn things warm. It makes floods happen in certain places. It makes it rain more in certain places. It makes it be sunny more in certain places. And it's added up into a situation where everything is just different and is changing. And we're just sitting here going, hey, this thing which was ice forever is now not ice. It was ice for millennia. Hey, come on in with ships. Let's move your commerce around the world. Let's move oil around the world. Let's actually dig for oil in these waterways now that it's open. I mean, it's absolutely frightening that that's where we jump to. And there's a malaise there. It's the only thing advancing. We can't put that rabbit back in the hat. We can't do it. I already talked about the cat's out of the bag, the horses out of the barn, the rabbit's back in the hat. We can't do it. And so now we just have to work with it and try our best and hope that we can outlive whatever insane event happens that can blow it all up. Because we know how markets work. We don't know how Mother Nature works. That's another Friedman thing I remember reading. We don't know that. We keep going, well, if it's 2 degrees over centigrade over this is where things start to happen. It's the point of no return. If there's 400 million particles per whatever, this is where things, really? Are we guessing that? Is it just, what about the black tail moment? What if it's all a black tail moment? A black swan moment, sorry. What if it's all these things where actually it could jump to 4 degrees or 6 degrees. And when you happen that, who knows what happens? We just don't, we really don't have any idea what we're dealing with here. And there's just a malaise. And all we need to do is, in each one of us, we just need to advance. We need to always be thinking positive, enthusiastic, moving forward, doing the right thing. Don't close in. Closing in is not going to fix this. And those who close in might hurt it all, might spoil the batch of apples by being the one bad apple. We need to be together in this. Who gives a crap about Democrats and Republicans? Who the heck cares when ice is melting in Greenland? When ISIS is now under major threat, after we put global resources together and husbanded that to get through to that. But there are just bad elements, and who cares? Who cares about these internecine battles? I know they go back millennia, but we're all just one. I feel like some silly Pollyanna, but it's true. I think positively about things. I think about my own world and how I can advance it, how I can create content, how I can consume content, and I don't understand. I don't understand these negative thoughts out there. I don't understand how people can live in these certain ways where they're so closed off. Maybe it's education. Maybe it's self-education. Maybe it's just consuming as much of the written word as you can, as much of the tapestry of different stories and documentaries and all that. Give yourself some empathy for it all by living in it and allowing yourself to be open to certain experiences. I mean, I've seen a lot of these things that are coming out from right wingers in our country, and there are these stories. Oh, this is the red herring. This is the silver bullet, showing that this politician did that, and you watch it and it feels silly. Or they're taking a small little snippet of something and turning it into the major story. They're not in the right. They're not, other than being a right wing or, a right of center politics, they're not in the right. The right is open. The right is always towards moving to open borders, to moving to open ways of thinking, to open source. We can't close off at this point anyway. People can say, oh, you're just going to let people in. First of all, America's not letting massive amounts of people in. And by the way, lone wolves happen with American citizens. If you want to talk about a lone wolf, well, we can't let them in because the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting, or because of this guy in New Jersey who knocked off a bomb in Chelsea, or San Bernardino. Look, those people are here. That's not going to do anything. We have our own lone wolves. What about the guy who shot up the movie theater in Colorado, or the one who shot up the Baptist church in South Carolina? What about all these shootings that happened? What about the kid who went in and killed all the little kids in Sandy Hook? Those are lone wolves as well. Lone wolves are everywhere. And we want to say, well, no, because it's an American and because people are going after gun rights by saying that we can't equate the two because one is guns and one is religion. Now, isn't it funny how Obama was the one who said these folks cling to guns and religion, and yet we're using the two to counterbalance each other? I mean, I just don't know. And again, I don't know if it's because I'm going through some early midlife crisis. I feel happy though, but I just feel a malaise, and I enjoy moving forward. I enjoy when I run, trying to outdo my time, feeling healthy. I enjoy, consuming beers, eating pizza, but then eating well during the week. I enjoy always moving ahead. My mind is always moving ahead. It's the only way I can be. I can't sit back and complain. I can't. If I have too much coffee, I'll complain, but I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. I just don't know what to say or do anymore. And you have to hope that if we can put to bed this Donald Trump thing, if Hillary Clinton can have an emphatic, total, dominant win in the electoral college, everyone's going to then say, well, the popular vote is only 4% off. Whatever. The electoral vote is the game. The popular vote is not the game. I always say if it had to be the popular vote, the Democrats have the smarts. They would figure out how to work that. They're working the game as it needs to be played. That's how it is. But this conglomeration that's happening. I talked about the Golden State Warriors and what a cool story that is, obviously. But there was an opening in that salary cap that allowed that to happen in this moment because they didn't smooth it over time. They didn't make the salary cap go up slowly over years. And by having that big moment where they opened up they sort of did the equivalent of what Mother Nature is doing and opening up the waters and going, hey, let's allow ships to go through the Arctic Circle because now there's not ice there. Woohoo! We'll get there quicker, which, by the way, is adding even more carbon to the adding more carbon to the atmosphere, which, by the way, now that the water's open, it's darkness, and the darkness absorbs the sun as as opposite, where ice actually deflects the sun because it's bright. When it's dark, absorbs, which makes the surface temperature of the water get even hotter, which creates even more of a pervasive melt. I mean, it's crazy. But the breach that was opened up in that salary cap jump allowed Golden State to sign Kevin Durant. And now the richer got richer. They won 73 games, and now they have pretty much the second best player in the NBA on their team. They had to lose some. They had to lose some players who were important, but they got the second best player in the NBA. It'll be fine. That breach opened it up. But now it changes the ability to care about the rest of the league. Again, it's like Apple, it's like Google, it's like Amazon. And what happens when an upstart kicks up? One of those guys buy that company. We don't have this ability to let 1,000 flowers bloom on their own, to create competition in the marketplace. I was shocked by this, but and this is maybe why there's a lot of malaise, at least in our country. We're worried about jobs. We're worried about how our business goes. And you know what's going on? This is one of the craziest things. I was reading about this week in The Economist. It was about private equity. So private equity are these sort of companies that act almost as stockholders, but they're even bigger than that. They purchased with the pot of money that they have from all these people putting the money into the private equity company, partners and investors and such. And then they buy companies who are ripe to be purchased. Either they were, their price was driven down for some reason, or their price wasn't. These private equity companies just want to buy them and then hold them for 5-10 years and try to shape them up and try to grow them with the management from the private equity company. So these two of them, one is Carlyle, who's a huge one, and one is KKR. So this shocked me. There's 275 companies in Carlyle's portfolios. I've worked with several that have been bought by them, and it's not pretty what happens. They employ 725,000 people. So those companies that Carlyle owns employ 725,000. KKR is 100. KKR is another one. I forget what it stands for, but it's a bunch of last names. There are 115 companies employ 720,000. That makes both of them bigger employers than any listed American company other than Walmart. It's sort of like how I was talking about in that pornography episode, where these pornography sites, the top ones, have as much bandwidth use as any company in the world, only to be eclipsed by Google or Amazon. So they're these hidden hogs of bandwidth that show you that people are actually doing this stuff, even though we don't think they are. We're both prurient and Puritan. You know, we pretend like we're on the straight and narrow, and then we go home and watch pornography. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, as you know from that episode. But this is sort of one of those hidden things that feels akin. It's one of these things where it shows you something. So imagine how many companies. So that makes 275 plus, that's almost 400 companies that are in the portfolio of Carlyle and KKR, with almost 1.5 million people in their employ. That's a lot of people who are under two organizations ultimately. And what happens when when those organizations are bought? They get changed. It's almost like being acquired. And they used to call these companies barbarians at the gate because they sort of came in like Vikings and would sort of pillage these companies. No one cares about human resources. They just care about the bottom line. They care about the spreadsheets. They care about the quarterly earnings, because ultimately they just want to flip this company out and make money for their shareholders and investors. And so it's scary because it's two companies ultimately, and by the way, only eclipsed by Walmart, who not many people are going to be like, oh, there's a beacon up on the hill of somebody understanding how the American worker feels and cares about their thoughts. So these three together, it's not great, but it's a hidden thing because you don't realize Carlyle and KKR are actually at the heads of many of the companies you're with. And it just changes it. They're now, all these companies went from having their own feel, their own innovative DNA, their own way of doing things, and now they're all doing it the KKR and Carlyle way because you have to. All of a sudden, CEOs are out, and new ones are input in their place. All of a sudden, C-suites are changed, and then all of a sudden, workers are then gone from many of them. I was working with one company who was purchased by one of these, sort of a hostile purchase by by a competitor. But the company who was purchased, who I worked with, I think Carlisle owned them. And so Carlisle almost set up the purchase where the one main competitor who was not an old firm, they were like sort of new, maybe 15, 20 years. They bought the company I worked with, who'd been around, I think, for 60 years. And then they bought them and then immediately knew who they filed into one room to fire a massive amount of the workforce. The workforce wasn't even allowed to go back to their desks. And then they filed the others into another room, and they were the ones who were going to stay, and here was going to be the deal. But these things have to be like Navy SEAL operations, where you can't allow a slip up to happen, where no one can know what's coming. And so they walk in on a Monday with a job, and they leave that afternoon fired. They can't even go back to their desk. Their life is completely upended. They're out on the streets of New York in a daze. And it's crazy. And this is what happens around the country. And so you get taken on by these sort of parasitic entities. And look, people can say, we're investors, we're making money with this. It's kind of like what they say Mitt Romney was involved with getting his money through. Is it good or bad? It's hard to say. Is it just a thoroughly modern philosophy? Yes. But where's the individuality in any of this? It's sort of it's making things like the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers, where all of a sudden nothing else matters. It's a zero-sum game where only one or two entities win and everyone else loses. And because of the market share, those entities, by having the power they do, are able to command. Now everyone's at their beck and call. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's a lot of what I read with Amazon, actually, from that great book, The Everything Store by Brad Stone. A fantastic book. And it's a lot of what you read in that. And they were creating, Amazon being they were creating global dominance in certain verticals and markets. And they drove the prices down constantly. They had great customer service, but who knows, when they knock out all the competitors, what happens? Do they then drive their prices up because they're the only game in town? Or is that just their DNA? Is that how they actually work? They've been able to keep Wall Street at bay without having profits, really. But I'm going to pivot on that, because one of their products that actually has come out that has changed the market, as I was talking about a malaise in a lot of things, and technology being one of them, Amazon is one of these companies that have actually created a sort of grassroots hit product without even realizing it happened. And that thing is the Amazon Echo. Talked about it plenty of times, but it's the cylindrical Bluetooth speaker with a smart assistant hooked into it. It's plugged into the wall. It's always on. You elicit it by saying the name of you can use Echo, Amazon, or Alexa. And by just saying that word, the light turns on and you can tell it things. You can ask it what the weather is. You can ask it what the news is. You can ask it to play music. It's hooked in through applications with other major services, including Amazon's own library of music and services. It's a fantastic little thing. And what Amazon does is they try to innovate off of this. They found a hit and they're moving with it, and it's pretty phenomenal. So I actually have 4 of these devices. I have 2 of the traditional plug-in-the-wall cylindrical black Amazon Echoes. I have the Amazon Tap, which is a Bluetooth, well, of course they're all Bluetooth, but which is a rechargeable version that you can kind of take with you wherever you go. And it's really neat, but you have to press a button to elicit. So you press a button and then talk to it, because it has to keep the power. It has to preserve its power that way. If it's always on, it'll run out of power in a second. So it lasts about 10 hours though on a charge, 9 or 10 hours, which is absolutely great. And then the newest I got, because I was talking about this in the Prius episode a handful of episodes ago. I was saying how I got the Google Chromecast audio to hook into my old Sirius speaker because I couldn't use that speaker anymore because I don't get very good satellite signal where I am. But in essence, through that speaker, I was able to play whatever I wanted through an internet stream fed into the Chromecast. Now, the problem with the Chromecast is it just doesn't have the availability of enough apps for me. It has a lot, but it has its own protocol almost where it talks to your devices through some way that's not Bluetooth. It's almost its own protocol, which is almost akin to AirPlay on Apple. It has you'll see the little Chromecast icon in a lot of your apps. Well, that's however it works. So it must be akin to AirPlay. But Bluetooth is what I like. Bluetooth is just a universal protocol where you can hook into anything, and that's what I like with Echo, is I'll Bluetooth a lot into that speaker. So I got shortly after that episode, it was announced that Amazon was releasing the second generation of the Echo Dot, which I would almost consider the top of the muffin to what is the Amazon Echo itself. So the Amazon Echo itself is probably about a foot and a half tall. And at the top of it, it has the little smart assistant part, which you talk to. You can have some manual management on top of it with like volume, which you can like turn it almost like you're opening a jar. You can hit a little button. You can do certain things on it, but you mostly just talk to it. So this is just the top of the muffin of that. And it used to be about $90, but shortly after that episode I did, it was announced the new one was coming out. There was going to be a white one added to the black one, and it was going to be $50. So I immediately jumped on it. It was going to be released October 20th. So I just got it about 3 days ago. And what I did was I took that and hooked that into my Sirius speaker. And now I'm completely happy because now I have an Echo in my office hooked to that speaker. It's just like having the Amazon Echo in general. I can talk to it. I can ask it questions. My speaker's always on. And now I can Bluetooth everything to it. I don't have to use the Chromecast protocol, which, for instance, is not in my Sirius app. It's not in my Overcast podcast app. So there was some places where there were holes in my regular use cases. So I was able to go into a Chrome browser and I could send Sirius, if I logged onto my laptop, on Sirius on my Chrome browser, I could send that to it, or I could go onto the Overcast. They have a very basic, primitive version of their app, but it doesn't have the smart speed and it doesn't have the voice boost. It's sort of just a light version of Overcast that does keep all the things you subscribe to, but it's not the best, so I could send it to that. But ultimately, I always manage everything through my phone. I like to listen to all the Howard Stern episodes from front to back. And so with my phone, it's always in sync there. Sirius is not very good with syncing across all the different things. So I have it downloaded on my phone. If I listen for an hour on that in the morning, then I move it into my car. I listen for an hour. And then, if I come home or something, or if I'm in the office, I want to flip where I was last at to my Echo. And you couldn't do that through the computer. So it was a little disjointed. Now, the Chromecast Audio was only $30 when I bought it, but now that the Echo Dot is only $50, that's not too bad, and it gives you a massive amount of more control at an individual level, so it's perfect for me, and I absolutely love it. The only problem with the Echo Dot is it doesn't come with the auxiliary cord. Very strange. I mean, the auxiliary cord is a big deal because apparently you can sync the Echo Dot to a Bluetooth speaker. So a normal Bluetooth speaker that doesn't have one of these smart assistants in it, which is the majority of them. But really, the Echo Dot is more akin to what the Chromecast Audio is, where it's hooking into an old dumb speaker through an auxiliary. So they didn't have the auxiliary as the Chromecast Audio comes with. Luckily, I had one left over from the early days when I used to hook my phone right into my car auxiliary before I had Bluetooth in that. It's a nice long cord, so it gives me a lot of space to hook the Echo Dot into that speaker. But I was real happy with it. A new thing that Amazon also released, they have their own version of a music streaming service. So when you have Amazon Prime, there's like 1 million, 2 million songs that are available to you just as a Prime member. It's a very good perk to Amazon Prime. And I've found that they actually have a lot of new albums. Where they're deficient is really in the back catalogs of stuff. But like for some of the albums I've been looking for, the new Blink-182 album California is on there. Really cool. Hotelier is on there, which I've listened to new. They have a lot of the new stuff, which is sort of a neat little thing. So they only have 1-2 million songs, but if you have a lot of new stuff, hey, that's great. But they came out with their own version of akin to Spotify, Google Play All Access, Apple Music, the old RDO used to be one, an all you can eat jukebox in the sky music streaming service where you have 15, 20, 30 million songs at your beck and call on demand at any point. You can save albums to your own library within the app. As long as you're subscribing, you can make playlists. You can pretty much get anything you want. And so they came out with their own version of that. And if you're not an Amazon Prime member, it's $10 a month, just like the others are. If you are an Amazon Prime member, it's about $8 a month, which is actually what I pay for Google All Access because I was an early subscriber, and there was a period of time where if you jumped in at an early time, you could get it for $8 a month. But the really neat thing, this is a little innovative for Amazon. For one Echo device, you can have this Amazon Music streaming service, this full-on service with I think 15 million songs. You can have it on that one device of your choosing, that one Echo device, for $4 a month. So that's really good. That's pretty close to what you might pay for a student discount on one of the other services that provide that. Like I just recently subscribed, just for the hell of it, again to Apple Music, even though I continue to subscribe to Google Play. And I think I'm going to just stick with that. But I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to Christina Warren, who I really like. And she was on a podcast talking about the different streaming services. And she's at Gizmodo now. She used to be at Mashable. And she was just talking about the fact she subscribes to several of them, which I almost don't even understand the purpose of. But as someone who likes to play around with tech, try it, see if there have been advancements since the last time I used it, I subscribe to it. I'm able to get the student discount, as I am for Amazon Prime, by continuing to use my NYU.edu from 15 years ago, or 12 years ago I graduated, but I keep that NYU.edu email rolling. You can get student discounts with it all the time. It ends up being absolutely great. So for $5 a month, $4.99, I have Amazon Music. I do like the Beats One, Zane Lowe show. When you subscribe to that, you can get those shows on demand from however many weeks over the past you want to run back, I think. And you get all the other music. I'm just not as in love with it. I don't think Apple, again, there's a malaise. They're not playing their services and their stuff to win. They're just kind of existing and doing the best to hold serve with other companies and to give Apple consumers their own version that is maybe 90% as good as maybe somebody like Spotify who's just doing that one thing, music streaming. And Apple's gotten like 15, 16 million subscribers, so it's pretty good. The app's not beautiful, though. I think Apple's like not completely on their game right now. But, I got that. And what's cool, this Amazon Music, so you can pick one of your devices. Maybe it could be, so I have 4, so I'd have a lot of choice. I would almost strategize it where maybe I would put, if I got this $4 a month version of the Amazon Music on one device, I would almost put it on my Echo or my Amazon Tap, because that can go with you wherever you want to take it, right? You can go on the road with it. You could take it to your office. It's very portable, rechargeable, portable. So it's almost like you would do that. But by having it on that, you don't have the availability in the smartphone app. You don't have it available on any other devices. But it's kind of a neat way to get in to streaming music at a very cheap price. But if you're a Prime member for just $8 a month, it's not that bad to have it on everything too. I just don't know the purpose in having all these different services at one time. They all do the same thing for me. And I just come back around to really enjoying the Google Play All Access version. They got the great mood-based albums. They bought the company Songza years ago, and they implemented that and integrated that into their app. The Google one's a perfect app, and Google's really good at the cloud, so they allow you to store all your old music in it, up to like some crazy amount, 25,000 maybe. So I've really enjoyed that. I don't trust Apple's cloud. But the other thing I did, I just jumped up to the new Apple iPhone. I got the iPhone 7. I got the iPhone 7 regular though. I got the I had the 6S Plus for the last year, and I had the 6 4.7 inch for the year before that. And so after having the Plus for a year, I just convinced myself that maybe I don't need to have such a big phone, because I mostly use my phone for audio and just for a quick way to see email, a quick way to see Facebook, certain news items, things like that. But I'm not sitting there reading long form articles on it. It's mostly a portable audio device for me and a way to keep in touch to a degree with certain ways. So I almost think phablets like the Plus, which is 5.5 inches, I almost think those are more for females, because I don't know, I've just felt like the normal female woman who has a smartphone typically has a phablet, because they're not tablet people. I don't know why. And also they have purses, so it's easy to put a phone into a purse. A 5.5 inch phone or a 5.7 inch like the Note was, those are really hard to put in male pockets. They're just, it's big. It feels like there's a banana in your pocket. You feel like a porn star maybe sometimes. It feels big. But I got the new phone. I got it right away too. That was the other reason I jumped on it. The iPhone 7 Plus in many ways is not available till November 30th. And why is that? Because of the exploding Samsung, was it Galaxy Note, I think? The Galaxy Note 7, because of that exploding battery problem, when all of those owners had to turn in those phones. And by the way, it's almost illegal to have that phone now. You can't go on a plane with it. You're almost considered having a bomb. That's how bad this battery problem was. What a mess for Samsung. So a lot of people, when they turn these in with the no worry guarantee thing, they flipped over to getting an iPhone 7 Plus. So all of a sudden the demand overcame the supply because of a crazy flashbulb moment in time. Well, sorry for that term, but because of that moment in time where those Samsung phones were just completely off the market and they were so popular, everyone was talking about, ooh, Samsung figured it out. And now everyone's saying the Google Pixel is the Android figuring it out. Everyone's saying, oh, what a great phone. The first one to really take on the iPhone. What a fantastic device. I just don't think I can go to Android. I'm just used to iOS at this point. And the phones are the phones. Like if you look at them, you squint a little bit, they all look exactly the same. And now that the Apple iOS has the thing with the widgets on the front screen, so if you turn your phone to look at, so once you turn your phone, once you put your phone before your face, it lights. And then you need to press the home button to get into the home screen. But it's following this idea from the Apple Watch, which the whole purpose of the Apple Watch, it stays off the whole time. Very, very similar to when I was talking about the Amazon Tap. You have to press the button to turn it on and talk to it, because if it were always on, it would wear the battery out. Very similar with the Apple Watch. If that screen was on the whole time, the battery wouldn't even last half a day. So what it does is it's off all the time, but it has a technology where when you turn to look at it, the screen comes on like a moment right before you look at it, so that it looks like it's always on to you. It's always in use. It's weird though, like when you lay down and you're looking up at the ceiling and then you go to look at your watch, it doesn't work. So it has certain use cases, the majority of use cases where you might look at a watch where it works, but they brought that technology over to the phone. So when you pick up the phone to look at it, it wakes up. And then if you swipe to the right, there's a widget screen. And that widget screen looks like an Android phone. It looks exactly like an Android phone. It has like all the widgets on it and the news and the maps and the ESPN, whatever you choose to be on it. So the two are just tying together. As I said, the Malaise, they're all looking the same. They're all KKR and Carlisle. They're all the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors. It's just these conglomerates tying together and making it look like there's some kind of special individuality happening across them. But they're all keeping up with the Joneses. It shows you there's a malaise that they're all trying to beat each other and no one is really leapfrogging anymore. But I really have enjoyed this phone. And Initially, I thought I made a terrible mistake getting the 4.7 inch, because it just felt tiny to me now. It almost felt like going from driving a Ferrari to like, sorry, I love a Prius, but a Prius, or like to a small car, or going from an SUV where you feel empowered by it and then going to a tiny car and you feel lesser than. I don't know what it is about it, but I didn't really love that aspect of it initially. The other thing is, like 3 days into having it, I dropped it. I dropped it already and got a little nick above the screen, not on the screen part, but up by like where you can hear people talking if you have it up to your ear. Like I'm more banana handed with it. You know, I'm more klutzy with it when it's a smaller one, which I wasn't expecting, because it's so easy to keep in your pocket, your jacket. And I got back to the point where I thought, so after jumping on it immediately to get the phone, right? I got the black one. I got the one that I could get immediately when I turned it in, because if I had to wait till the 30th, I'm really impatient. I couldn't do that. So what I did was I jumped and got this one. I'm getting all of the benefits of having the new phone with the new operating system on the new phone, the new technology, not having the headphone jack, which for the record hasn't been that terrible. I've actually been okay with it. It hasn't changed my life immensely. I have all the iPads that have the Lightning anyway, so if I plug the Lightning headphone into that, it works, so I can carry around one headphone. I was always an earbud user anyway, so it's not a big deal. The one thing where it is weird though, at night, I would sometimes, maybe half the week, I would choose to put in an earbud and listen to some kind of podcast that I don't care a ton about, just going to bed at night. My wife won't let me listen to have things out in the open, even TV. I was always someone who went to bed with TV and or audio of some sort, and I would have a sleep timer on it so it would go off. My wife's not for that, so I would often put the earbud in, but when you had the dedicated headphone jack, the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, you could plug your phone in overnight, which is the majority of the time most of us plug our phone in, and or when we're driving. But I would plug it in there, and then I would just have my earbud in the normal headphone jack and then have that in my ear. So the issue now is you don't have that headphone jack, so you only have the one jack. I don't have the splitter. I don't want to get into that. So that's an issue. But I did have some old terrible sounding Bluetooth headphones, so I just put that earbud in. And whatever, that kind of works. But the phone's been really good. The one thing I didn't notice, and I kind of read that this started on the 6S Plus, I didn't notice that that Verizon got the capability where you can talk on the phone and then also be able to utilize data. That was always AT&T's thing. I think it was talk, text, and data where you could do all those at the same time. Verizon, you couldn't do that. Now that wasn't an issue because if you were in a Wi-Fi zone, the data could come on through the Wi-Fi. You could surf the internet. You could use all those. You can use all those applications while you were on the phone because the phone was using the LTE, 3G, and then the internet was being hooked into the Wi-Fi. Now, apparently, I'm driving to work one day and I'm like, whoa, I'm getting emails. I'm on a call. I looked it up. Apparently, it came out with the 6S Plus, so I had it all along, I guess. But that was really cool. I think that the Verizon, the HD audio is amazing. It sounds like you're doing a podcast when you're able to hook with somebody else who has, I think, an enabled phone for HD audio and they're on the same Verizon network. You dial them and it literally sounds like you're on a broadcast with them. So I think that'll be kind of neat for podcasting. It also feels like it picks up immediately. And then if I'm not mistaken, I looked it up. That's not using data. That's just using your minutes, apparently. So that's another cool thing. That's almost like how T-Mobile has the Freedom Everything plan where all these apps are allowed to be utilized and be data hogs, but they don't count against your cap. This is really cool because I'm listening to this audio going, wow, if this were like FaceTime or if this were Skype, this would be eating up data at a pretty big clip. Whoa. So that audio is really good. Otherwise, it's a nice little phone. But I decided, because you do have a 14-day period after you buy a phone where you can return it for another one. There's a $35 restocking fee or something like that. So that kind of sucks. The waste of getting rid of a phone so quickly and getting a new one, that's not cool as I talk about Greenland melting. But I wanted to leverage that moment in time and be like, well, I could have the phone for almost 2 weeks and then I could get back to the one I wanted, which is the 5.5 inch. So I was looking up on Verizon and I was going to stop at the Verizon store and see if I could just swap it out. But again, I realized, wait a second, they're under the same protocol where they're not available for a long time. They're not available till November 30th. You could get the 256 gig phone in early October, but who the hell wants a 256? And then you would have to get rose gold or something. I don't want to do that. That would drive me even more nuts than having the small one, which, by the way, after a week, I'm not that driven nuts by having the small one. It's actually really nice. So we'll see if I have to reacclimate now to having the big one. But I called into Verizon. I brought up my quandary that how am I supposed to work this out where I only have 14 days to turn in, but I have a month and a half before the phone I want to turn in for is available. And so the woman said, well, you know what? Because of the fact that this Samsung phone thing happened, where so many phones were made moot because of this exploding battery, they had to extend to all these Samsung owners something called the worry-free guarantee for a long time. So it pretty much means that you're under that 14-day limit for a much longer period of time, that you don't have to worry until the new phone can come to you. So you can continue using it. So now I'm in this situation. I feel like I'm an Apple reviewer. I'm in this situation where I have the iPhone 7 4.7 inch. I'm going to end up having it for 2 months. And then the minute the new one comes, I'll have a new phone, the 5.5 version of the iPhone 7 Plus. I'll get that one. And then I'll just send this one back after having it for 2 months. So that'll be kind of cool. As somebody who's really fixated on technology, I'm really looking forward to that. But I have enjoyed the phone a lot. Again, I love technology. There is a Malaise. It's not amazing leapfrogs in technology and processing and all this. The headphone jack thing is crazy. Now, I don't know if this is something that the headphone jack allows, because I guess the headphone jack is a powered connection, if you think about it, right? Like a headphone 3.5 millimeter jack is sort of a passive. You plug it in and you can listen through it. But since the lightning jack is actually where you power your phone, I guess you can get some kind of boost to headphones. And so when I mow my lawn, I have a ride mower. I would frequently put my headphone. I do have a set of Beats, a red set of Beats that I wear. Whenever I put them on, my little 2-year-old goes, Mo, like that's like your mowing gear. He thinks anytime he sees a mower, he thinks it's like associated with me, like the most unhandy man there is possible. That's why I have a rider, but whatever. Hey, if I'm the hero of riding mowers to my son, I'll take it. But so I would plug that in and I would listen to stuff while I was ride mowing. First time I ride mowed with this. Now I use the adapter they give you. So I plug that in and then I plugged my normal 3.5 millimeter Beats headphones into that adapter and put them on. And I felt like the sound was really booming. Usually I have a hard time hearing, even when it's jacked all the way up to 10. I have a hard time hearing while I'm mowing because of how loud the riding mower is. I'm sure it's doing a lot of good for my ears, but whatever. When I had this in, it was like at 8 or 7 and I could hear it really clearly and well. So maybe there is something to that. Maybe it's a nice little thing. But other than that, yeah, it's nice. I just like having new phones. I use it so often. I probably check it 100 times a day. And so I want to have a nice thing every year. Sue me. That's my one bad environment thing, I guess. But I have to hope that they're just recycling them somewhere nice, not being sent from on a boat to be buried by kids in China somewhere and have these terrible, it's kind of strange when you think about the fact that these rare earth metals are dug out of the ground to create these devices, and then they're just buried back in the ground as the packaged devices. And I don't think the earth likes that. It's like, I always think it's weird with oil. So oil is bad for the environment apparently, but yet people get it out of the environment. And like when the not the Event Horizon, when that one that just came out with the movie with Mark Wahlberg and Kate Hudson, the one that happened in the Gulf of Mexico around Louisiana and stuff. I always thought it was weird, like when the oil came bursting out into the water, why does it ruin the environment? Maybe this is the stupidest sounding thing ever, but why does it ruin the environment when it was just dug from the environment? And isn't it weird too that we use thousands and 10,000 year old animals and plants long dead to fuel our cars? It's crazy. That's what it is. Fossil fuels. Weird. Well, I guess it's just as weird as using whale oil, right? When they would go through those Moby Dick times and be going all around the world trying to kill whales to get to their, I forget the name of that oil, but to get to that oil. But yeah, so we'll see when I get the new Apple iPhone. Maybe I'll talk more about it. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've liked it. I'm moving ahead as much as I can, but there is a malaise. You got to imagine. You can't deny it. So my friends, we just did an hour. I wasn't even thinking of going that long. Let's call it there, and let's enjoy the rest of our day and our final days here, final week of October as we head into November and when we will vote. And again, I'm just hoping for a drubbing, not because I just completely love Hillary. And by the way, Theo Epstein, he's got to be the next president if the Cubs win. Young guy, if he's a Democrat, I guess. He's like the kind of guy who I can imagine working on the Obama campaign, hosting the Keeping It 1600 podcast on the Bill Simmons Ringer Network. But man, that guy could win. But let's just get Hillary in there. Let's get a good quarterback in there. Let's not put Case Keenum in the White House, okay? All right, guys. Talk to you later. Your friend Matt McQueenie, over and out.